Good morning. Good morning. Let me take this off. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a community gathered to nurture spiritual growth, real connection, and faithful action for a better world. Our minister, Sarah Lowell, is on a much-deserved sabbatical. I'm Rob Ham and will serve as celebrant for today's service. And I'm joined by our visiting minister, Reverend Sara Green. Welcome to those of us joining us virtually. Everybody say hello. We're so glad you're out there. And welcome to all of you joining us in person. Welcome to longtime friends and visitors, young and old. You're an essential part of our celebration today. Whether it's your first or 999th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. And we're glad you're here. All who join us in the spirit of curiosity, love, and justice are welcome this morning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, your presence is a blessing. We are all growing, all learning, all loved, just as you are. You are welcome here. In the spirit of our mission to build a beloved community centered on justice, equality, compassion, and interconnection, let us take a moment to acknowledge our gathering upon native land.
We come from and live on land considered sacred by indigenous people known as Bannock, Paiute, Shoshone, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years. We strive to understand and reframe our responsibilities to land, to community. In the spirit of respectful reciprocity, we honor the original caretakers of this place. We affirm the relationships we have to each other, including our relations to animals and insects that inhabit the water, land, and sky. We recognize the relationship, the responsibility to quiet creeks, rushing rivers, rustling grasses, to sprawling forests, to the brilliant palettes of the sky, to the roots that grip the soil, to the earth beneath our feet. Water is life. To all of us affected by the boarding school revelations, may we be granted compassionate understanding. May we find healing in the harm that lives in our history. We honor and support the right to sovereignty for our indigenous neighbors. We acknowledge that a land acknowledgement is not enough. Now, let us breathe together. Let us take a moment to enjoy the delicious air, the oxygen provided by tree. Hold to the warm light of sun. Consider the solidity, the groundedness of earth. Flow with refreshing, life-giving water. Let the mud settle. Find clarity of mind and spirit. Welcome our ancestors. Enjoy this present moment together.
I want to take a moment to welcome those newcomers among us. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're so glad you've joined us today. For newcomers joining us online, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat so our community can warmly welcome you. We'll also share a link to our newcomer form in the chat. Please complete the form and submit it so we can keep you up to date with all that's happening in our fellowship. For those newcomers joining us in person, you can find a link to our newcomer form using the QR codes on the bookmark on your seat. Our new coffee area on the north vestibule is now open for to-go coffee or tea. Please feel free to grab a cup and take it with you on your way, or take it outside and visit in the courtyard. Just a reminder, masks are still required at all times indoors. We have a lot happening, from book groups to adult classes to meditation to neighborhood pods, both in person and online. And I do have a couple of announcements I want to highlight for the whole community. Today is our annual congregational meeting. It will be on Zoom and begins at 11:45, allowing for members who are with us in person today to get home and log in. Please make an extra effort to join us to ensure that we can establish a quorum. While we are busy participating in the service in our annual congregational meeting, we will receive in your email a request to vote for the newly proposed bylaws. Please review these bylaws and vote. The threshold for passage is high and will only work if everyone votes. On the information board, please find an exhortation to help care for our outdoor sanctuary. Carol Ogden, our member and just hired gardener, and the outdoor sanctuary team are asking for your help. Take a look and sign up if you are able. It is our practice to donate 25% of our unpledged Sunday offering to support our social justice ministries. For the month of May, our partner is Brown Like Me. In a region where Black children are often the minority in schools, activities, the grocery store, and even at home, Brown Like Me delivers programming that allows Black children and youth to see the beauty of being Black. Monthly club meetings and other regular events provide youth with activities that build self-esteem and expose them to Black culture, connect them to Black mentors and community leaders, and just as important, deliver opportunities to be around friends who look like them. To participate in today's offering, you can visit our website at boiseuu.org and click Give at the top right corner of your screen. For those in person, you can go to our giving page through the QR code on the bookmark on your seat. Or you can drop your check or cash gift at our lock boxes located at each side entrance of the sanctuary. You can also download the Vanco Giving app on your smartphone, and your checks by mail are always welcome. Our spiritual theme is nurturing beauty. Today's sermon is titled The Art of Foraging. Reverend Green reminds us that foraging is the ancient practice of gathering edibles from the wild. Like foraging, our faith can be a vehicle to learning to expect magic, finding sustenance on long, hard journeys, and listening to the wild around us. I'm so honored to welcome Reverend Sara to our pulpit. Reverend Sara joins us for the entire week, participating in a number of activities, bookending her visit with services this Sunday and next Sunday, May 22nd. Her sermon next week will be titled The Art of Composting, and she tells us that part 2 of this mini-series will survey the practice of composting as it relates to the work ahead. Reverend Sara is the Youth and Young Adults Program Manager in the Lifespan Faith Engagement Office of the Unitarian Universalist Association. In her UUA introduction, she tells us that she imagines liberation, salvation, beloved community as communities that have the ability to eat good food together, experience pleasure in our bodies, and regularly put their hands in soil, all the while free from fear and ignorance by way of all cultural and legal changes that must happen in order for this world to exist. She understands herself as a legacy of a cultural workers, healers, Maroons and Creoles, Southern queer freedom fighters, and artists trying to shape God. Welcome, Reverend Sara. I also want to thank the other collaborators in this service, Emerson-Paige, Director of Family Ministries, Carrie Bastian, Music Director, Mike Lemieux, Audiovisual Coordinator, Nancy Harms, Program Ministry Specialist, and our thanks to the ushers, both online and in person, and to Gwyn Reid for helping us shape this service.
As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment to center ourselves. Let yourself become fully present in your body and in this space. Set aside your duties and concerns for just this time, and let us take a breath together. Just breathe, knowing that your breath connects you to your spiritual center, to each other, and to the planet. For me, Reverend Kendall Gibbons' poem, Second Person Intimate, captures Martin Buber's I, Thou world, the world of encounter in the present moment. Reverend Gibbons' words invite us to participate and act upon this living immediacy and intimacy. If we pay attention, it can alter the way we live out our lives. As I read this familiar poem, I invite you to imagine that the thous and thines are the one person in your life who conjures up images of magic, surprises, and adventures. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp that lights where I tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
I have climbed the highest mountains. I have run through the fields only to be with you. Only to be with you. I have run, I have crawled, I have scaled these city walls, only to be with you. But I still haven't found what I'm looking for. But I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I have kissed honey lips, felt the healing in the fingertips. It burned like fire. This burning desire. I have spoke with the tongue of angels. I have held the hand of a devil. It was war in the night. I was cold as a stone. But I still
In the South, we'd say that they're singing. Have you found what you're looking for? Are you looking? As spiritual foragers and truth seekers, we are looking for each other. We're looking for meaning. We are looking for beauty. We're looking for nourishment. These times are hard. We're looking to be filled up. We're looking for hope. We gather together to dare to find a little bit of that, to dare to be filled up, because wow, what could we accomplish then? What kind of community could we have then when we let ourselves be seen, be felt in community? Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in lighting in solidarity and in community with thousands of other Unitarian Universalists lighting chalices today in churches, homes, virtual worship spaces, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. As we light this chalice here in this sanctuary, and for those joining us on Zoom, if you have a chalice nearby, you are invited to light it with us this morning. Then share in the chat where your chalice is lit in this morning. With our collective chalices lit in all our spaces, we offer you this call to worship from It Takes a Universe by Thomas Berry. The child awakens to the universe, the mind of the child to a world of wonder, imagination to a world of beauty, emotions to a world of intimacy. It takes a universe to make a child both in inner form and outer form, spirit. It takes a universe to educate, to fulfill a child. Each generation presides over the meeting of these two in the succeeding generation, so that the universe is fulfilled in the child, and the child is fulfilled in the universe. While the stars ring out into the heavens, come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you join me in getting cozy for our time for all ages. Our story this morning is Finding Wild by Megan Wagner Lloyd and illustrator Abigail Halpin. It's going to help us explore how we can explore the natural world all around us and find joy and surprise everywhere we go. So let's listen. Finding Wild. Wild is tiny and fragile and sweet baby new. It pushes through cracks and crannies and steals back forgotten places. Here we are. It feels like our protagonists have left the city. They're surrounded by nature. Sometimes wild is so tricky, you have to squint to see it. And then there are times you can't possibly miss it. Wild creeps and crawls and slithers. It leaps and pounces and shows its teeth. Wild is full of smells. Fresh mint, ancient cave, sun-baked desert, sharp pine, salt sea, every scent begging you to drink it in. Wild is forest fire hot and icicle cold. It is as smooth as the petals of poppies and as rough as the fierce face of a mountain. Watch out, wild can hurt, itch, burn, ouch, and sting. But wild can also soothe, gentle breeze, cheering sun, soft rain. Wild keeps many secrets waiting to be discovered, like its candy, honey from bees and sap from trees, swift melting snowflakes and juice bursting blackberries. Wild roars and barks and hisses and brays. Its storm thunders and wind whispers. Wild sings. Sometimes wild is buried too deep, and it seems like the whole world is clean and paved, ordered and tidy. You look, and all you can see are streets and cars and buildings so high they hide the sky. And then, just when you're about to give up, there it is again. Old and worn and still standing strong. Wild. I wonder, what is wild? What do you think of when we think of wild? What parts of nature? And where can you find it? Join me now in blessing our beloved community with song, where together we learn, grow, and live out our values.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
Two readings, excerpted from A Field Guide to Getting Lost by Rebecca Solnit. How do you calculate upon the unforeseen? It seems to be an art of recognizing the role of the unforeseen, of keeping your balance amid surprises, of collaborating with chance, of recognizing that there are some essential mysteries in the world and thereby a limit to calculation, to plan, to control. To calculate on the unforeseen is perhaps exactly the paradoxical operation that life most requires of us. To be lost is to be fully present. And to be fully present is to be capable of being in uncertainty and mystery. And one does not get lost, but loses oneself, with the implication that it is a conscious choice, a chosen surrender, a psychic state achievable through geography, that thing, the nature of which is totally unknown to you, is usually what you need to find. And finding it is a matter of getting lost.
As our community begins to tentatively open to more in-person activities, I look forward to those good times where we break bread together and sing and dance and touch each other. It helps us feel as if we belong to a beloved community. And I know that part of what helps folks feel as if they belong here is our dedication to supporting each other. We honor that in many ways. Perhaps the most conspicuous evidence of that support is the time we set aside each week to acknowledge the joys among us and to grieve our sorrows and losses so that we might lift the burden for each of us and receive the blessings of this community. I remind you that you can submit your joys and sorrows online each week via the link on our website. Our virtual community will continue to share joys and sorrows in the chat. It is through our sharing with one another that we forge deep bonds of community and connection. As we begin, I would like to hold up the following joys and sorrows that have recently been shared. Aaron Moore finished grad school and became a counselor. Case Hultnigel's memorial service will be at BUUF on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Ray Montague's memorial service will be Saturday at 2 at the Center for Spiritual Living. If you're holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name and into this community of love so that we may hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all our joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent, close to our hearts. May we feel the grace that surrounds us, transformed by the spirit of life and love, with warmth to celebrate our joys, and with gentleness to soothe our aching hearts.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life, spirit of mystery, we are here this morning because we are daring to be witnessed in community. Spirit of life, spirit of love, we know that there are so many more of us here than bodies. May we be comforted in that knowledge and curious about who, what they are, and what their medicine is for us today. Let us be held in our transitions and our joys and our sorrows, celebrations, and moments of confusion. Spirit of life, remind us that we are co-laboring together, and that when we share vulnerable parts of ourselves, or good news, bad news, and everything in between, that people are breathing with us, people are praying with us, people are sipping tea with us together. Spirit of life and love, remind us that we are not alone, and that even being here today, lighting our chalice, spending time in silence, that there is medicine for us. Spirit of life, remind us that we are held in love. Amen and Ashe. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, church, for, gosh, so many things. That'd be the sermon if I started naming all of the ways that you all have made me feel welcome. Thank you for the overall spirit of hospitality that I feel in this church, in Boise. Who knew? Everyone's like, oh, you're in Boise? And I'm like, yeah, it's great. You should come visit. Well, I'm Reverend Sara. I am coming to you all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's very far. And I knew it was far when I saw the plants here. It almost looks like I'm in outer space. It's wild. Like Rob said, I work at the Unitarian Universalist Association with our young people and with religious education. Also, I moonlight as a gardener. Don't tell anybody. I love growing food, medicine, and I'm learning, although it's a growing edge, to grow beautiful things, like just flowers for flowers' sake. It's a growing edge, but I'm getting there, trying some things out. What I have been thinking about for most of 2022, as so much of our world is shifting, is how do we story our way through and out of these moments? So in the South, and I'm sure in Boise, although I'm still learning, there is a tradition of cultural organizing that says alongside spending days and weeks in legislative plazas and writing bills and lobbying. Alongside all of that, there's a culture shift that we need that is made up of metaphors and song and art and stories. That's kind of how I see myself in general, and as a minister, is to help us organize our culture around the world that we're trying to build. And so I'm thinking about stirring our way through and out of things like COVID. Like, how are we making sense out of this? Like the attack on reproductive justice, how are we understanding ourselves in a lineage of freedom fighters? And how are we storing ourselves through and into thriving for our UU churches and communities? Story. As I look around at all of these human-made natural disasters, I see people trying to fix it with more human-made solutions. That's really gonna work out real well. Denying the land autonomy and agency and the right to heal itself, and thusly doing some powerful healing work within us. It's a little bit of what I'm missing. We build up levees and try to make sure there's the perfect evacuation route, which, gosh, so important. And there's something we're really missing about the world that is becoming, the world that our young people are coming of age into. So studying and applying earthwork and gardening and all these kind of land-based concepts is about repair and transformative justice for the land and thusly communities and myself. Today I want to talk about foraging as a spiritual practice. Foraging I decided on because it values the wild in ways that big agriculture tries to convince us that they're the only ones that can make food. And monocropping has tried to tell us that biodiversity isn't as important as we want to think it is. And some HOAs try to convince us that some plants don't belong on lawns. In my mind, doesn't this sort of logic creep into other areas of our life? This control, this containment, politics, community building, how we organize. Oh, that doesn't belong in this meeting. We can't sing. We got work to do. Church. It kind of bleeds over and into. Maybe this logic is trying to protect us from chaos or ideas that it deems unsafe because there's mystery to it. And sometimes our brains, they don't really like mystery sometimes. Maybe this logic of control and containment and manicured landscapes doesn't think we're capable of complex ideas, or if you follow the money, is trying to sell us something, but that's a sermon for a different day. Then there's foraging, filled with counter-medicine, magic, and deep relationships. See, at its core, foragers know that we already have most of what we need. Foragers know we don't need to deplete the resources to have enough. Foragers know that relationships are reciprocal. If you ever foraged, and based on what I'm learning about Boise, maybe there's some rosemary you've picked, or some sage for dinner. You may know, maybe this is news to you, that there are kind of rules and practices that you kind of have to know before you go out and start eating random berries. Pretty much every piece of literature or workshop on foraging, it says, if you don't know what it is, do not eat it. So there's some study study. I think foraging is how we story our way through this year. I found a succinct naming of some of those principles by a collective known as Know the Land. And they provided some context that I think is important when we're looking for food. And I'll sort of use what they lift to the surface and apply it to our work as a church and our organizing work and our relationships. First, some water. It's dry up here in Boise. I did bring extra moisturizer. The first principle foragers use is the principle of unexpertness. There's 2 points. The first, they write, unexpertness involves setting aside both our own pressures to be an expert and also the reverence we hold for those who claim that title, perhaps, assumed by them without any other board. In the plant world, it means we don't have to know everything about every native Idahoan plant. And that what we do know about a plant is valuable, even without the credentials of Western study. Knowledge is fluid and contextual. Knowledge is fluid and contextual. That's a hard concept for people who like science, who like thinking and logic. How would it shift our work together if knowledge was fluid and contextual? In our communities, this means we are intentional about when we speak and when we listen. And we cultivate self and community awareness to know the difference between those moments. It means that part of our UU identity has to include humility. Appreciate the honesty. It must include letting people speak from their own experiences before deterring to the information in a book or a talk by an expert. Lucky for us, UUs have the tools for this. We have all we need. We look at our principle, the one that says the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. That one. After the march yesterday, I went to a meeting that I got recruited for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I think they did a march a couple of weeks ago when the documents first got leaked. I'm kind of familiar with the organization, but I haven't engaged them in a while. When I showed up, the plan that I was told from leadership was we were going to read the party statement on the struggle for reproductive rights and then have a discussion. So I show up, and to be honest, because I'm a UU, so sometimes I do UU things, I show up and my brain went straight to strategy. Like, okay, when are we gonna do something about it? How is this getting us to the issue? How is this are we gonna pass a plate for the abortion fund? What's the plan? As much as I like to be a cultural organizer, I like to have a plan. I do. But then in this meeting, I went foraging. I found this project of creating a collective knowledge and wisdom about the topic. I found people asking questions, posing incomplete answers, and I found this group of strangers building trust and vulnerability with each other. There doesn't mean that there wasn't clarity. There was clarity about centering working class and poor folks, about focusing on systems rather than taking down individuals. But this was organizing. This was what folks call being in the struggle together with no experts. The next part of this is that we want to observe and be critical. And they write, we want to also speculate and imagine, but we want to be clear on which is which, not to confuse our speculations with observations. What would our communities look like if we made room for observations and awe? Can we hold our experiences with each other with this much curiosity? That you show up to a congregational meeting and you forage for magic instead of, I'm hungry, I got places to go, when are we going to vote? Take that with you. I want to hip you to a process that I really love by this dance maker, Liz Lerman. She's out in Washington, D.C. She has a process called critical response. And oh my gosh, if y'all ever do talkbacks, if you ever give feedback to Reverend Sara, this is such an amazing tool. There's 4 steps. The first one is statements of meaning. Right off the bat, what was meaningful? It puts us in a different posture. Number 2 is artist as questioner, and here I love to think about ministers as artists. So this is when the person holding the group, the minister, whatever, asks questions to the audience, like, how did that land for you? What were moments of awe? The third step is neutral questions from the audience. So these might be questions that sound like, tell me more about your decision to paint the walls, whatever color this is. Tell me more, curiosity, awe. And then the 4th is opinion time, with consent. Y'all's mms are so good. I can only imagine the mms on Zoom. But this might go, hey, I have an opinion about the chalice. Oh, God. Would you like to hear it? Sure. It's gorgeous. It's magnificent. The second principle of foraging that kind of builds on this, once we've decided that they're only contextual and fluid experts on a thing, is re-enchantment. It's the magic, the play, the joy of finding something you didn't expect. Now, before we get into this loop that we get into, that joy is the same as happiness, let me share another story of the myth of Sisyphus. It's actually one of the stories that got me into ministry in the first place. So if you're unfamiliar, the part that I like to join the story is Sisyphus is pushing this rock up the mountain. And at some point, he realizes there's no top of the mountain. Spoiler alert. And he doesn't stop pushing the rock up the mountain. Whoa, he's like pushing it to the side. He's pushing it with an elbow. He's like wiggling it up his back. He's like maneuvering a pulley system. Enjoy. There's this book, Joyful Militancy, edited by a couple folks that help to tease out the difference between joy and happiness. They write, from this perspective, joy isn't an emotion at all, but a process that moves us away from conditioned habits, reactions, and emotions. It's the thinking feeling that arises from becoming capable of more. And often, this entails feeling many emotions at once. Joy can be devastating, painful, dangerous. Whereas happiness can be used as a stifling anesthetic, joy is the growth of a sense that things are different, that we are different, that a more capable we is forming that didn't exist before. The point is not to chase after joy instead of happiness, but to tune into and transform the here and now of our situations. Joy promises nothing. And that is what makes it powerful. The third idea is that we're part of a living ecology, that our actions have consequences for an entire community of beings, even when we're downtown, even when we're in our homes. This is a mandate for cohesion and integrity in our lives, that we honor the interconnectedness of all people, beings. When we practice covenant, does it end once we leave the doors? Does it only count when someone's watching? There's another When foragers practice this idea that we are part of a living ecology as opposed to a stagnant, architecture, they notice the weeds that grow in the crack of the sidewalk. They notice when the pine pollen is in full bloom and ready to collect, and who in their community might benefit from its medicine. Theodore Roosevelt's musing about the man in the arena kind of rings a bell for me here, and that it's not about the person who's like pointing at they should be doing X. It's about the person who's wrestling, who's struggling together, who is reading a party statement and saying, well, what about this? And I still am not sure about that. Are you showing up to the living ecology that is your life and moving in a way that acknowledges that you change things and are changed by things? The last idea is deep listening. Now, these are, of course, not linear. But I do think it's interesting to think of revisiting this idea of listening when we started with the idea of unexpertness, because that also involves a certain level of listening. Foragers move with all of their senses activated, paying attention to what calls us. Yesterday at the march, there was, the first Black woman that I saw was an advocate for anti-abortion. That was pretty jarring. She was pregnant and she was ruffling up the feathers of a white woman carrying a sign that says she stood with Black women. She was asking her, what does that mean? I'm a Black woman, are you standing with me? The scene, it called my attention for a couple of reasons, but I needed to spend some time there to understand really what was going on. Friends, there are things that I did in that moment and things that I really wish I would have done in that moment. I wanted to say that I saw her, and I said a little bit of this, I see you. I wanted her to know that I saw her bringing a Black kid into the world. I wanted her to know that I was so elated for her and her choice. And I was there for others to have the same choice. And so I did that in a calm voice. And as expected, she sort of lowered her tone. And then she asked what it meant for this white lady to be carrying a sign that said she stood with Black women. I said, I can't even begin to imagine what that means for her, but I can start to promise you that I think she's doing her best. But there's more that I wish I would have said, and I think this was a clue for me to linger a little bit longer. I wish I would have said that I care about her, that I wish I would have talked to her about Black maternal health and things like preeclampsia, which can be led on by stress and can lead to preterm labor and all sorts of interventions. I wish I would have been able to communicate that I wanted health for her and her baby. I wish I would have invited her to do her own deep listening at the event instead of spending hours with an elevated heart rate or blood pressure. And I wish the women with the sign that said they stand with Black women would have showed more compassion to her. And even without engaging in conversation with her, which I don't think was always necessary, would have really seen her. Deep listening. It's that lingering a little more than you think you ought to. It's that little bit more of silence. One of the things that called me to Unitarian Universalism was the spaciousness. I don't know how many of you are born UUs, but my first time in a UU church, I thought, oh, I can breathe, I can exhale. There's space to imagine and to dream. There's room to do the work of foraging that is gonna sustain me and my organizing and my family. So many of the foraging techniques that we've talked about already really live in our faith, in the work of covenant, in the work of worship, in our principles, even in our committee work. I really hope people on Zoom can hear the mms. There was another collective there. My invitation to you this week is to forage around a bit. Treat nothing like it's mundane. Look for the magic. Practice joy, the kind of joy that doesn't promise anything. Linger a little bit longer. It's been a pleasure spending time with you this morning. I look forward to seeing you all this week in our various comings and goings. And maybe we can forage together on a walk. I'll be at Caffeina, the coffee shop, on Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to 1, if you wanna forage. There's always something to forage and look for, and I look forward to seeing you there. Forage away, my friends. May it be so. extinguishing the chalice. Okay. But then I don't have words. Great. Okay, great. Did it. Done. Friends, as we head to the rest of our days and our weeks, I invite you to frolic, pause, and forage in the most mundane and expected moments of our lives. May it be so. Blessed are we all. Go in peace.